Songs of praises I will ever give to you, that great Welsh rugby crowd. We need to praise, but it isn't a protection against bad things happening. That's the way life is, isn't it? And the gospel story which we're about to hear starts with something bad happening in that John the Baptist has been executed and the news just reaches Jesus. And what does he do? He decides to take his disciples off somewhere quiet to reflect and no doubt to pray. But what happens? People see him moving away and they follow him and come from the neighboring areas and want him to mingle with them and to do things for them. And Jesus always responds. He always responds. So on this occasion, he starts to do healings and no doubt to teach. And as he does so, the day passes, the night is coming, and the disciples get worried for the crowds. And they say to Jesus, look, it's getting late and people need to eat and they need to find somewhere to sleep, no doubt. Send them away so they can do that. And Jesus turns round and says, feed them yourself. That's the way into our story. Let's hear it from Matthew chapter 14. When Jesus had heard that John the Baptist had been executed, he withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place. Hearing this, the crowds followed him on foot from the towns. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them and healed those who were ill. As evening approached, the disciples came to him and said, this is a remote place, and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so that they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food. Jesus replied, they do not need to go away. You give them something to eat. We have here only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, they answered. Jesus said, bring them here to me. And he told the people to sit down on the grass, taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. Then he gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the people. They all ate and were satisfied. And the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. The number of those who ate was about 5,000 men, besides women and children. It's a wonderful story, isn't it? All sorts of different things come out of that. God's abundant provision, enough for 5,000 and baskets full left over. The generosity of the boy who shared. He's not mentioned in this version, but he is in others. And the fact that Jesus said to the disciples, you feed it. And it was the disciples who had to take it round and found that in their hands the bled breast by Jesus never ran out as they moved on. That's a feeling that isn't always obvious, is it, for us as life becomes more restricting. But it remains true. However, life can feel very restricting. As I was reflecting on this, I remembered that old song, 16 Tongues, about a miner who works from morning to dusk very hard and can't pay off his debts. I owe my soul to the company stores. Let's hear it. I'm sure you'll remember it.